Can't. For some reason, my sign in isn't even showing.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Let's go ahead and get started. Let me just post the streaming link. All right. Let's see. Where's my? There it is. Okay. So for today, we are going to kind of catch up on the Saturday's class and do a quick revision, and then we will be doing the same API calls today as well. Okay. So today is more kind of more exercises, more practice. You guys will be building a couple of apps. Let's see how far we get. But it's all based on everything from Saturday. Okay, there's nothing new. More new would be how you are parsing the data that comes from the Ajax call, and then how do you display it on the screen. Okay, but the function that you will be using are still the same. So let's go ahead and do a quick recap, and then we'll jump into the exercises. Okay, so we started with the definition of API. We tried to understand what an API is. I hope that everybody is clear on that. This is the official definition of an API from MDN, the Mozilla Developer Network, right? But remember what an API was? API is how do you communicate, how do you talk to some other software, okay? Basically, it's a method of communication, and that tells us how do we talk to some other software, okay? And then we looked at web APIs. What is the purpose of a web API? It gives us access to some data stored, some data that is stored somewhere else, okay? When we are using a web API, we don't have direct access to anybody's database or data store or anything, okay? The only way we can access that data is through a web API, right? So for web APIs, we register. Some of the APIs require that you register for them, and then you get an API key. All right, we saw that most of the websites, I would say, require a web API, and the reason is, and we saw the reason. The reason is they are trying to control the flow, that how many people are able to access their data. All right, some of those have tiers, and some of them, like the tier 1, tier 2, they give you access to free data up to some requests, and then they want to charge you for their data, right? For example, I said Google, once you are doing your project or some exercise, you will sign up for Google APIs, and you will see, I think the restriction is, I keep forgetting, I think it's like 10,000 requests or something, or 100,000, I don't know. And then their second tier, it's kind of weird that they say, hey, you go ahead, and then if you enter your credit card, they're not going to charge you. They're saying if you enter your credit card, they're going to bump it up to 100,000 free, but they're not going to charge you. If you go above 100,000 requests, I think that then they will charge you. But it's kind of that's their trick, right? 10,000 is free. Then if you enter your credit card, 100,000, and then they will start charging you, something like that. So there are different API access that you will see, but the important point is that they are giving you access to some of the data that they have. Okay, and that's one of the more common ways to access some data. Okay, so in this before project 1 till now, we are going to be looking at how do we get that data. After project 1, we are going to see how do we create those APIs. Okay, so right now our main focus is how do we use the APIs that already exist. Okay, and one of the ways is that we look at their documentation, we understand what is the language that they're expecting, how do we talk to those APIs. Okay, every API is different. We saw couple of APIs on Saturday, and both had different parameters that you need to pass in, right? The OMDB was expecting Q or T or something as a title, right? But we looked at Giphy also. Giphy was totally different, all right? They were expecting a Q as a search term, and that they had a limit and all that stuff. Okay, so different APIs have different rules, different way you can talk to them, and the big sources, just go to the documentation and see how they want you to follow those rules. Okay, I talked about the web APIs. Those are the big ones, and that's what we'll be talking. That's what we'll be practicing today as well. All right, some of the use cases. We saw the movie API, Giphy API. Today we'll look at some of the weather APIs. Okay, those are the ways that you can get some data from. Okay, we talked about Google Maps, Google API. Somebody mentioned, I think Kelly mentioned Google Places. Those are all the APIs that Google gives, and a lot of companies use those APIs. Airbnb, I think Uber also. But those are the big ones that use Google Maps, right? They didn't go and create their own maps or something. They're just reusing them, and they pay a lot of money to Google, of course, to use their APIs. Okay. The last one is also interesting. I didn't talk about it, but as you get used to it, you will see there are the smart devices. If you go to their manufacturer website, you will see that they have API as well. I know Honeywell, they make smart devices also, so they have their APIs. Nest, that's from Google. If you go to Nest devices, they also have APIs. You can actually code. They have different support for different languages. JavaScript is also one of them. Node.js. Um, they give you access that you can sign up for their APIs and actually control the smart devices. Okay, of course they have authentication. You cannot control my or somebody else's devices. They go through a whole authentication, and the device that you have registered, you can control and write some code for it also. Okay, there are some APIs for drones. I'm trying to remember the manufacturer, but if you buy a drone from them, they actually give you access to their APIs, and you can actually control the drone without the remote and write some cool code around it. Okay, and then you already, it's through JavaScript. It's nothing crazy, so you can actually write some code using JavaScript. Okay. Um, these are some of them. So if you're interested, Philips, the smart devices they have. Um, the notebots, that's a kind of cool one, but you have to buy the hardware to actually use it. Well, you for all of them you have to buy the hardware. Again, you can look at some of the drone ones also. So all of those are working through APIs. Okay, so it's pretty common, and a lot of people make projects, not projects. I haven't seen any project in this course, somebody using a physical hardware, but outside I've seen people like to make apps, Android apps and iOS apps, but behind the scenes, they are actually just tapping into these APIs and making web API calls and getting the data. Okay. So some of them are interesting. If you guys are interested, you can take a look at those APIs as well. Okay. Then we saw the mode of communication. How do we talk to those APIs? Like how does the data come to us? And we saw the format is JSON. Okay. JSON is basically your JavaScript object, right? Key value pair, that's all JSON is. Okay. So this is the most popular format of communication with the APIs, and this is how they send the data, right? The other format that used to be really popular is XML, but you will hardly run into an API that does not support JSON, right? I have never seen an API that does not support JSON. If it does not support JSON, it's probably a super old API that they haven't upgraded or nobody uses it. Okay, but there are APIs you will see that they have definite support for JSON, and then they support XML also, because at corporate level, a lot of companies still are kind of use XML formats. Um, but for our course, for our purposes, for your projects, you will probably never run into an API that says, "Oh, I won't give you data in JSON format." Okay. Again, JSON is just your JavaScript object. All right. We saw how do we parse it. We get the data, store it somewhere in our code, and then parse it just like you would parse as a JavaScript object. Okay. This is one of the examples, and we'll take a look at it, some examples today as well. We saw some from the OMDB database, right? They were giving movie names, actors, years, and all that stuff. And how do we get the data in jQuery? We saw one method, right? What was that method called? What is it? Well, no, what method, like what do you, Ajax, right? That's a function in jQuery that we use to actually make an API call, right? And within that Ajax, we were passing two parameters. The first one was get. The first one was the URL. That's the actual URL where your web API resides, right? And the second was the method, the HTTP method. And right now we are just focused on get, right? There are three more popular ones and then numerous more. Okay, we'll see those when we are actually creating our APIs. Okay, so URL and the method. Let's see. So this is the diagram for full stack development. Right now we are still in the client and the front end part. All right, all these things are still front end, right? And this is where we will be in until project one. That's what I like to call the first phase. The second phase is where we will come to this part, and we'll be actually creating these APIs using still JavaScript, but I'll talk about that. But right now we're still kind of over here, and this week and next week we'll still be focused on this. You guys will be making projects using all of these technologies. We haven't seen React, but we'll come to it. But you guys will be creating projects using jQuery, JavaScript, HTML, using JSON, and then user interactions. Okay. Any questions on this diagram or anything that we have covered previously? All right, Ajax, JSON, web APIs, and then from the full stack part, this would be the whole full stack, and we are still on the front end. All right. Any questions? Do you guys understand what an API is? What JSON is? Ajax methods. Right now we are just looking at jQuery. So jQuery has a one easy method, and then I kind of showed you how would you do it in JavaScript also. Okay, I pushed that code. I don't know if anybody looked at it, but it's kind of a little bit complicated. So that's why we started with an easy one. But if you really want to write vanilla JavaScript code, that's how you would do it. Okay. All right. Any questions on any of those 4 points? Everybody good? Okay. So I hope everybody signed up for the weather API that I posted, because that's the first exercise that we are going to be doing. Okay. Let's see. Again, if you didn't, I would prefer you guys use your own API keys, because again, as I said, they keep track of how many requests are going on. And if I run out of those requests, then I won't be able to actually solve anything. Okay. But so you guys go ahead and do a git pull on exercise number 5. It's called Bujumbura. I think this is the name of a place. Okay. So what we are going to do is you guys are going to work on it. Take a look at the easy one first. I think the easy one has some code in it. Let's see, what do we have? Let's look at the easy one. So easy one, if you see, already has this Ajax call. If you are not comfortable, you didn't get a chance to go back and do those exercises, start with the easy one. I'm not sure what else I can say, but I would prefer that you start with the harder one. Hard one doesn't have any code in it, and that's the practice that we are trying to get into, that you actually are able to write that $.ajax code and kind of remember the syntax. Okay. But the bottom line is you guys are going to make an API call to open weather API map. Let's take a look at this API. Okay, you guys are going to look at the documentation. They have a lot of documentation, but you guys are going to kind of figure out from the documentation how do you retrieve weather data of the place called Bujumbura, Burundi. Okay. Again, you can put any place, but the purpose is how do you put a city and a country and retrieve some data. Okay, so we are looking for wind speed, humidity, temperature information, and you're going to show all that information in your HTML. The HTML is given. They already have div classes over there. Take a look at it, write some code, and retrieve that data from this website. Okay. Again, they have a lot of documentation. See which one would you start off with. So we are trying to find current weather data. So jQuery is there. I'm just going to separate this out. So let's see. I'm actually going to delete the easier one. I'm not going to attempt that. So this is not required. And then I'm going to create a JavaScript file and separate it out. Let's call it weather.js. Okay. We already have jQuery added. I need to move this to my other tag and then add a newly created JavaScript file. Okay. So move these comments out. Put it here. Oops. Don't need the script tag anymore. And then let's go ahead and make sure we add our document ready. So document dot ready function, and then ready function takes a callback function going to be anonymous. Okay, I'm going to move these comments inside here. Let's go ahead and make sure this is working. So I'm going to test this out, do a console log, weather.js file. See, console, and there it is. Okay, so this is connected. Now you guys can go ahead and next step would be to make that Ajax call and get the data. Let's see, what do I need to get? Get an API key. Okay, I have the API key. Create an Ajax call to retrieve the data. City name. Okay, this looks promising. Let's see. Okay. Where am I passing my API key? Please remember that all examples of API listed here connection to the real API service. Okay. Let's go back. Let's see. How to start. Sign up for the API key. Okay. And then it's called app ID. Okay, so I have to put an app ID and then put in my API key. That's what I was looking for, app ID. So we can go back here. Then we are looking for search by city name. Okay, so they're using Q. So I'm guessing, let's go back here. This is my city and this is my country. So I can use the second one probably. So let's see, API key. I got my API key. There's my API key. I can copy this. You see, I'm using a constant because this is never going to change, so there's no reason to make it a let or a var. So that's my API key. Okay. Let's see what's going to be my URL. And I looked at the documentation. Looks like either one of this will do. Since I have a city and a country, we can use this one. Um, start with constant. If it doesn't work, I can go back and change it. But basically, something like this. Let's go ahead and put HTTPS. It's better. So the first is city and the country. So let's go back here and see. Where's the Bujumbura, Burundi? Let's go back here. Oops. So I'm going to replace this with this. Okay. And then I'm missing the API key. So what I did was I went back to OpenWeather and then looked at their starting page. Oops. On the page they were how to start. And then within the start page, they were saying it should be app ID and then API key. So ampersand API key. This is how you're going to add your API key. So app ID and then your API key. I'm going to use the string literals syntax and then add my API key at the end, which is by the keyword API key. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, looks fine. Let's go back. And then all I need to do is go ahead and create my Ajax call. Okay, syntax $.ajax, right? And then .then function. Let's go ahead and put these in new lines so I can see. Okay. My Ajax takes in a object, right? An object has two properties, URL, which is going to be query URL, and then the next is the method, which is going to be get. This is our HTTP method. Okay. And my then function returns a promise, and it is expecting two callback functions, one success and one failure. I'm going to use anonymous function syntax over here. So I'm going to say function. This is going to be my success function. Okay, and the second one is going to be my error function. My success function is going to give me some data back, so I'm going to put it in the response variable, and my error, I'm going to store it in this variable. Okay, formatted. I'm going to put these in new lines so that, oops, okay. So my first function is success callback. My second is error callback function. Okay. I'm going to complete the error one. That's easy. I just need to console log some error for now. So I'm going to use console log error and then and just output any error if it shows up. Okay. All right. So this is how it looks like now. The first thing I'm going to do is, I don't know how the data looks like, so I'm going to console log the response that comes back, and then I'm going to take a look at the JSON that comes back, and then I'm going to extract the fields out of it. Okay. Let's see. So I have my URL defined. Okay, my API key, and then I'm using the AJAX method get, and yeah, this should be good. So let's go back and see. Oh, there it is. So I'm getting my data back. Okay, and there's a weather object, there's a wind, coordinates. Okay, looks like I'm getting everything back on the main object. Wow, look at this temperature, 284.9. Wow. It is what? It's Kelvin. Yeah. I think the bonus is how do you convert this, but we'll come to that. Okay. Was everybody able to get to this point? No? What is it? Oh, conversion of the temperature. Okay. Yeah, that's a bit more advanced, and we can see the documentation. I'm sure they have something to convert the temperature. But the first thing and the most important is you are at least able to get the data back. Okay. Any questions on this? How I did this? Okay. So what do we need to find out? We need to find wind speed, humidity, and temperature. So before even I fill up my HTML, I'm just going to try to log these out. I should have seen this. So first I need is, what do I keep forgetting? What's the first thing? Wind speed. Okay, so how do I find the wind speed? So there's an object called wind. Okay, and then within that wind there's a property called speed. So it should be response.wind.speed. Let's try this out. Response.wind.speed. Okay, there it is. The next thing I require is humidity. Let's see, where's the humidity? Okay, so it's inside the main object, so response.main and that dot humidity. Okay, so let's go ahead and console response.main.humidity. Okay, and there's the humidity. Let's look at the temperature. How do I extract the temperature out? Let's see, so main and then temp. So same thing, response.main.temp, and there's my temperature. What else? City, is there a city? Yeah, so just response.name. So log response.name should give me the city, and these are all computed. Okay, So now you can use jQuery over here and kind of put these in. Let's see. So city, class city. That's easy. Dollar, get that class and then embed that into it. So dollar dot city. This gives me the class. Okay. Let's add some HTML. Just put everything in a h1. h1. Okay, and then response.name. Let's see if I can use my let's do this. Let city name is equal to response dot name. Then I'm going to do, see if this works. Template literal h1. Okay. Within the h1 I want my city name, so I'm going to say dollar city name. Okay, and my h1. There it is. Okay, that works. Cool. Don't need this console. Just keep it here. Okay. Let's do one more. Let's do temperature so that we can convert and see how that works. So let temperature, and this is in response dot main dot temp. Okay. And this time my HTML is temp. So dollar dot temp. Okay, dot HTML. I'm going to use my template literal syntax, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to use h1 and then add temperature variable and then close my h1 slash h1. Okay, and there is the temperature. And then you can go ahead and complete the other two. Okay, any questions so far? You saw how this is being done? Okay, so the question was on the unit. So let's go back and look at the documentation again and see if we can figure out what's the, so if you see these units over here, this looks promising. So what this is saying that the units, if you can pass in another query parameters, either metric or imperial, and then it's going to give you the data. So let's go back and change this and see if that's, so all I have to do in my URL, I need to add another query parameter. It's called units, and then imperial, and then it returns you temperature in not Kelvin. Okay, again this is it's all from the documentation. And then if you can change it to metric, let's go back and change this to metrics and see. Okay, then it gives you temperature in centigrade, right? If you put it as nothing, it's giving in Kelvin. If you put imperial, it's going to give you in Fahrenheit. And then if you change it to metric, it gives you centigrade. Okay. The solution is pretty easy, but the thing was that how do you look at the documentation and kind of get to that part? Okay. So it's kind of getting you guys into the habit, because that's, remember, this is the only way. Nobody knows anything about the API. It's when you're using it, this is the only way that you can understand how to use an API. Okay. Again, I don't know this API, even though I have taught, right? forget about unless I use it, but I know what to look for and what to look for in the documentation. Again, it comes more and more if you're looking at the documentation. Okay, you exactly know where to go or how to find out how do I find the API key, what do I have to do, right? So make sure you look at the documentation and then kind of solve these API questions. Okay, before we move on, any questions? Okay, was everyone able to get the data at least, the response? Okay, a little bit parsing. Everybody understand how to parse just like an object. Okay, nothing different. Good. All right, so if this is good, let's take a look at the next API. So let's see. So this is going to be exercise number 6. All right. So we saw the API. This time you're going to build a full-blown app. Just not API call, but you're going to use some jQuery, kind of make it look nice. But we are going to start, we're going to do it in phases. Okay. We'll solve the first one. I'll show you the solution and we'll kind of go over it. And the next one is the next exercise depends on the solution of the previous one. Okay. But we'll post the solution as it is to Slack it out once the time is up. And then if you were not able to complete, you can use this solution to complete the next one. Okay, but all of them are tied. Let's see eventually what we are trying to achieve. Let me show the working one. Hopefully my APIs is up. Okay. So this is what you have to eventually come to. Let's suppose I add a movie. Okay, you saw as soon as I added a movie, a button showed up over here. And then when I click this button, it should show information about the movie. Okay. If you click, these are existing ones. And you see the flow, the movie that I searched the latest shows up on the top. Okay. Again, if I add another movie, okay, the button shows up here. When I click the movie, it makes an API call and then gets the information of the movie and then adds it on the top of the page. Okay, so we are going to do again this in phases. We'll start small and then kind of eventually build this app. That's what we are targeting. So this encompasses everything, like from your button clicks, getting that information and kind of solving that. Okay, so the first part is look at the HTML file, look at the APIs, make sure you understand the functionality, how the jQuery is working, how the HTMLs are set up. Let's take a look at this. If you want to separate it out, do it right now and then kind of walk through the README and see how you would get some information and fill out those gaps over there. Okay, this thing is important. JSON.stringify. Make sure you Google that. Look at the documentation. This is a JavaScript function. Okay, it's not jQuery. It's JavaScript function. JSON.stringify. Take a look at this, what it does, and see how you're going to use this. Okay, so in this one you are just making a, looks like an Ajax file. You already have the kind of URL given to you. Okay, make sure you put your API key over here. In the example, you will see Trilogy. Again, this is the API key that I'm using. I prefer that the API key that you signed up from the last class, change it to your API key. Also, there's a lot of HTML code that is already done. Please make sure, go over it, make sure what is going on and why, what is the purpose of all of this. Okay? Starter code add functionalities such that the clicking movie search triggers an AJAX call and the JSON response to be appended onto the page. So you are just getting the data and dumping everything to this div ID. Okay. The final app that I showed you, we are eventually going to get there. Right now, it's just extracting the information. The next few exercises are going to do this. Okay. Make sure you understand what the ask is.
Let us know if you guys need help. We can't help you if you guys don't ask.
What? You're not a mind reader? You can. That's the first qualification to become a TA. See what shows up. So search movie name. Okay, nothing happens. Anyone completed this activity? No? No one? Oh, one. That's it? There's one person?
Are we supposed to just literally
That's it.
response?
Yes. That's all. You just have to get the response and dump it into this ID. That's all. We are not making the final app yet. Okay? Just see the instruction. You just have to get the data and then display it in the div. That's all. Still two people? Okay, I'm going to hope that you guys are just shy, don't want to raise your hands. I don't want to break my heart. I'm going to assume more than two people have completed this activity at least. It's just making an Ajax call. Okay? You did it? Yeah, okay. So you already have the query URL. Same method $.ajax. Okay. Dot then you remove this to a different line. So and then format it. Kind of looks nicer. Okay. Ajax method takes in an object with two properties. The first one is URL, and I have my URL on the top assigned to this variable. So I'm going to pass that in. Okay. The second property is the HTTP method called method, and we are passing in get. Okay, that completes my Ajax method. The next is the then method that returns a promise, and this is expecting at least one callback function, but I'm using two so that I can capture any errors. So my first callback function is going to be for success. Okay, and my second callback function is going to be for error. So I'm using the anonymous function syntax over here. Format this. I'm going to move this to a new line so that it formats nicely. Okay, so the first one is going to be success callback, and my second is going to be for error callback. Okay, if there's any error, this function is going to get fired. For my success, I'm expecting some data back. I'm going to call it response. For error, I'll just simply call it error. Okay. Error one is easy to complete because I'm just logging my error. I'm not going to do anything with it. I'm just going to log that error and see if something happens. So my error is complete. Okay. So just to test it out, I'm going to console log my response to make sure that I'm getting something back before I proceed. See if any data comes back. Okay. Let's make sure my query URL, I have the right API key. You guys replace this with your API key. Movie is coming as soon as I type something in, and that should be it. So that's why I'm going to type a movie and then search it and then see if something comes back. Okay, so I'm getting data. Okay, so this means this code is correct. Okay. The last thing it says is just display it in the div with an ID of movie view. That's it. You just have to basically take this and put it into that div. So dollar find the div. It is an ID, so it's going to be hash, and the ID for that div is movie dash view. If you go up, make sure that's it. Okay. So I'm going to find that div and then just dump it. I'll just use the text method. That's all I want to do. Okay, so I'm going to dump this whole response in that view. Okay, let's go back, search again, and there's my response. It's populating it, but not in the correct format. Okay, so that's where that hint comes in. JSON.stringify. Oh, it's in the README. Okay, so that's where the JSON.stringify comes in. You see this thing? It's returning an object JSON.stringify method. I hope you guys Googled it and looked at the documentation. It converts it into a string. Okay, it takes an object and it converts it into a string, a more readable string. Okay, what does that mean? Let's remove this and then put in JSON.stringify method, and this time pass our JSON object that is coming from that website to this method and see what happens now. So if I search this, and you see instead of object, now it's much better. What JSON.stringify is doing, it's taking your JSON response and converting it into a string, something. It kind of expands it out, right? And that's why I see this whole JSON string kind of show it on my div. Okay, for this exercise, this is all that is required. All right, next I said we are slowly in phases, we are going to build it out. For now, this is all that is required. Are we good? Any questions? Okay, no questions? Good. Is everybody got this working? Okay, so the thing with these exercises, the next one is on top of this, so it's built on this. If this doesn't work out, it's the next one. You guys won't be able to do it. Okay, I would prefer you guys use the same file, but again, that's totally up to you guys. Lee, can you slack out the solution for this one? So Lee will slack out the solution for this one, and then um, we can move on to the next exercise. Actually, the next exercise has the solution for this. So the solution is for those guys if you are using the same file, kind of build up on top of that. Okay. All right. So let's take a look at the next one. This is going to be 07. Same project, um, same API. Okay. This time, let's take a look at what they're asking. So this time looks like you're creating buttons. Okay. So you're going to create a button. As soon as you click that button, the movie name, remember from the solution, it kind of shows up on the top. That's what the ask is. So you're going to create buttons on the fly or dynamically. Okay, again, take a look at the HTML, make sure you understand, what the instructions are, and then kind of do it. Okay, you guys have done your crystal homeworks, kind of similar thing. So these should be a lot more familiar now. Okay, so take a look at the code and see what needs to be done for this exercise. Looks like there are two options, easier and harder. Easier probably has a lot more code given to you. Let's take a look at the difficult one. Oh, difficult one doesn't have any code given to you. Okay, so pick one and see if you can solve. I'm going to pick the difficult one and kind of solve this. But easier one looks like it has, well, the code is the same, it's actually more comments. That's interesting. So easier one has more hints. How do you proceed? And then the difficult one actually gives you option to do it how you would do it. Let's see. Yeah, it's the same amount of code. Okay, I'll pick the comment one, the easier one. It's the code is the same, it just has more comments, so I can walk through this so you guys can see what exactly has to be done. Again, make sure you go to the README, go through the HTML, make sure you understand what needs to be done. some CSS. Um, IDs. JavaScript is added. Let's go ahead and run this first and see what shows up. Okay. So this button should create a new button. Oh, so new button should be for each one of these movies actually. Okay. So you see there's no Ajax call required for this one. So the solution from the previous one actually doesn't matter. Just use the new file. It's just asking you to create a buttons. And then probably in the next one, you need to make that Ajax call. I don't see any instructions saying make an Ajax call. So this is pure jQuery. Event.comments from submitting the button, use the submit button. Okay, grab the text. Okay. Then like the fridge exercise, you're creating new buttons. Right? Okay, so the first comment is delete the content inside the buttons view div prior to adding new movies. What method did you guys use for this one? Empty? Okay, excellent. So let's go ahead and use empty. So it's an ID, buttons view, excellent, and then dot empty. That should take care of the first comment. Okay. The next one is looping through the array of movies. So you can use the for loop or you can use for each, whichever you are more comfortable with. Both of them will work over here. Let's do with the simple for loop. So for string to I. Oops, did I? Nope, messed up something. Okay. So for loop, array of movies. So it's going to be movies dot length. Okay. So this is how you do the for loop, right? Loop through the array of movies, then generate buttons for each movie in the array. Okay. So this is where our jQuery comes in. So let's create button. Create a button. So I just need this will create a button for me. Okay. Let's see. Okay. What else? Add a text to it. So button dot text, and then the text will contain the movie name. So movies I. Okay. What else? The last thing I just need is to append this to my main div, which is buttons view. Correct. Let's go back and make sure. Buttons view over here. Okay. Movies will be dumped here. Okay. So let's see. Dollar. Where's my buttons view? There it is. Button view dot append my newly created button. Okay, and that should show up the buttons over here. There you go. Okay, pretty straightforward. Loop through it, create a new button, add some text to it so that the text shows up, and then add it to your button view. That was all for render buttons. Okay. Now we need to add the movies. So anything that I type in should be added as a button, which doesn't work right now. So let's see. Event.prevent default. This is from the HTML, remember? Because we need to take control of this button. It doesn't go ahead and submit it. So that's why we basically are taking the functionality, the default functionality of that button. Write the code to grab the text the user types into the input field. Okay, so I need to find the ID for this one, which is add movie. Okay, so grab the text that is typed in from this field. Movie ID. So let's go ahead and I'm going to create a variable, save that movie name. Inside that, movie name is equal to dollar, and then ID was movie dash input, correct? Right. Movie dash input, yeah. Okay. And then I'm trying to capture the text. So what function did you guys use for this one to capture the text of the input? Any idea? What do I use? Dot text. Dot text will give me the text. Well, this is a function. Okay. Dot val. Let's see. Chris is saying dot text. Chris, you know this works, or you just guessing?
I'm just guessing.
Oh. So text is used to set the text what you pass in. Dot val. This is the one that should actually give you the whatever you typed in over here. Wasn't this in the homework or something? Let's test it out. I'm going to console log the movie name, and if this works, I should have my input, whatever I typed in over here. So let's go back to our console. Let's see, inception. Okay, so dot val, that's the one. You can pass in anything else. Kind of shows up here. Okay, so it's the dot val function. So we capture the text that is typed in. Okay, write the code to add the new movie into the movies array. We will use the dot push method of the array, remember, and then just add the new movie that we just captured, and this will update the array. Okay, there's two lines in this method basically. Code to grab, push that to the array that already exists. Oh, actually, that's it. So literally, is that it? Okay. Okay, that was it, I guess. Okay, so these are working. Let's see. Did you guys use a data attribute and jQuery attr? Let's see. This is a so remember behind each button we are trying to attach the data attribute, just like the crystal or the fridge game. That's what they're saying. So what do I have to do? Button dot attr. Okay, and we are adding data attribute. Let's call it movie. Okay, and then let's put in movies I. That will add a Let's go back and make sure this is done. So I'm gonna go switch to HTML. Take a look if the, what is it? Oh, I'm already solving. It said in the read. Oh, you just have to read it. Never mind. All right. All right. Let me move it. Okay. So this is working, and was there anything else, or this was it? Okay. All right. Any questions on? Yes. Ah, nice. So if I press empty, it just keeps adding empty buttons. So how are you checking? Where do I make that check? Excellent. So when somebody clicks the button, so this movie name is not empty. So that'd be a good check. So if not movie name, then just do a return so it doesn't go forward. That's kind of shortcut. Is that what you have, or did you do a little bit different? What's the other? Oh, okay, okay. You did it. Is not equal to null like this. Not equal to empty string like this. Okay. Oh no. What am I missing? If movies is equal to like this. Yeah. If it is empty, then I don't go forward. Yeah. Okay. So a couple of ways you can write this the same if statement. This is kind of shorter one. So if it's not empty, then basically don't do anything. Okay. Good point. Good validation. Any other questions on this one? Again, there was no AJAX call in this one. This was just kind of revision of the jQuery exercise. Hopefully everyone was able to at least complete this one. Any questions on this? Again, this is just jQuery. I think the next exercise is the one where we're kind of going back into what Ethan was mentioning, the data attribute. Okay, so let's take a break and we'll start back at 8:10, 15 minutes break, and then we'll look at the next exercise. Yes. Which one? So you guys are confused about line 68.
Why is it not because when return is referring to which is whatever you do there to stop.
Right. So what happens is, do you guys understand this statement or not? No, it's not true. This is same as saying if movie name is not equal to this thing. Well, actually, this is equal to if movie name is equal to this. So the not symbol means, let me go back and, so not symbol actually switches around. So if movie name is true, it's going to flip it around and say it's false. This statement will become false. Yeah, I'm coming to that. But do you understand the if statement or not? So if movie name is empty, right? Empty is going to return false. So in JavaScript, anything, if it is a null, if it's an empty string, it returns a false. So this is going to become false. And then you're going to flip it around and this statement is going to become true because I have a not over here. Okay. So this means if the movie name is empty, I don't want it to proceed. Why? Because if it proceed, it was adding these empty buttons over there. Okay. So now we come back to this return statement. What does this do? This says if the movie name is empty, come here and then just return. Do not proceed. Return means stop the working of the code and then just return from this point. So that's what return does. It doesn't follow, it doesn't move forward. It just stops execution here and then returns, basically comes back to this thing and doesn't proceed. That's what return does. Yes, exactly. Stop running code. From this point onward, just return. Just stop anything after that. Don't do anything after that. That's what it does. Yes.
It's specifically referring to the stop on.
Yeah. Yeah. So it stops the execution of this function. Yes. But this is as soon as this stops, there's nothing. I'm not doing anything after that. Yeah. Break is for actually if you are in a loop and you want to break out of it. That's where the break is used. So break is traditionally used for if you are in a infinite loop, but there's a condition you want to exit out, right? That's where you would use a break or in a switch statement. So break is used to stop the loop and then just come out of the loop, not come out of the whole function. You're trying to just come out of a loop. So, for example, if I had a while true, oops, this is a infinite loop, right? Uh, it will run forever and ever and ever. Oh, it actually, oh, I stopped it. That's good, right? So now let's suppose if there was some condition, if some condition, right? If some condition, this means if some condition is true, right? If let's suppose there's a variable some condition. If it becomes true, then you will say break. This will then break out of this loop. That's what the break is for. Yeah. So over here, I mean, you can use return. I don't think return is appropriate because you are trying to exit out. Maybe there's something that you want to do after this, right? Once you come out of the loop, you want to execute some other statements. That's why you want to break out of this and make sure that this gets executed. Then it just stops and doesn't execute anything after that. Yeah. So return is super like, okay, that's it, done, and I'm not going to do anything. So it's kind of more, I wouldn't say dangerous, but you need to know what you're trying to do. Break is that I'm just trying to break out of this loop, but there is something afterwards that I want to. There might be some code over here that depends on this, so that's why you want to break out of it. Just this statement and execute everything. Return will just stop everything and finish the code basically. Yeah. In this case, it was more appropriate because I don't anything after that is redundant. It wouldn't make sense to execute anything. That's why I used return.
Sorry, I had to do that.
All right, you guys get it now? Good. Okay. All right, let's start on the next one. Let's see what the next one is. This is going to be number 8. All right, so we are on exercise number 8. Use the starter code provided. Create the missing code snippets inside the alert movie name function. Okay. Let's take a look at our HTML file. Similar from the previous one. There's an alert movie name function that needs to be completed. The loop is already done from you from the previous exercise. It's adding some data attributes. Please make sure you understand what's going on. The callback function, the click function is also there. Make sure you read the comments. The purpose of this is you need to complete this function over here. Basically, it should show an alert that shows the movie name. So if I run this, let's look at our let's look at our elements, body tag. There are my movies. Okay, so these are my movie buttons. All of them are being created on the fly dynamically, right, from the previous exercise, and this one already has that solution. So the job is when you click this button, add a movie button, it should pop up with an alert giving you what the name of the movie is. Okay, so remember from the previous exercise and homework, how do you pull the data name out and show it in the alert? That's all this is. Okay, so all you have to do is, I think it's literally what, like 2 lines of code. 1. Okay, Irina can do it in 1. Okay, so literally 2, or you're super smart, then 1 line of code. Yeah, it can be done in 1 line. So that's the goal. So you have to pull this out and show the movie in it. That's it. Should be fairly quickly done. Again, this is still jQuery. We're still not used any Ajax, nothing over here. That's why you will be a good backend developer. So done with this one? So you need to complete line number 39, the alert movie name function. And where is this function being called? It's being called from the on-click event. Okay, so when the click happens, this function is called. Alright, basically when this button is clicked. Okay, so in this function you need to show that alert. And what are we showing the alert with? For that data attribute, right? And this data attribute is over here. How do we capture that data attribute? Let movie name. Remember from your fridge exercise and homework also, dollar this, okay, and then use the attr method. And what is the attribute called? Data dash name. Remember from the HTML we saw this is what it was called. Expand this div data dash name. Okay, that's it. And then just show this in the alert. Movie name. Okay, so if I click the matrix, should show up. There it is. The notebook should show up. Should show up. Should show up. Okay, and if you add a new movie, it should work for that as well. And then shows up with the correct movie name. Okay. Again, alert movie name, that's where it's being called on the click functionality. Okay. And remember on the click, because this function, we can use the $this attribute to get the data name. Okay. Remember from the fridge exercise, crystal, we did this in the homework as well. All right, any questions? Okay. All right. So again, until now, we still are doing jQuery, right? We haven't still, we did the Ajax in the first one. And after that, we are still fixing some of the jQuery part. Now, the next one is we are going to go back and make Ajax call this time. Okay, so this is number 9. Let's see. So look at the code and then create the missing code. Okay, so you just have to create this. So let's go here and see. So I have my movies array. I have a function this time, display movie info. Okay, before I come back to it, let me make sure what's going on. So I have render buttons function, add movie. This is the click handler, and then display movie info. Okay, so if you go back to this function, this is being called from here. Okay, function for dumping the JSON content, right? When I hear JSON, this means I have to make a AJAX call, right? JSON is only possible if you make a AJAX call on the web API. Okay, so this means on this function, you need to create an AJAX call, get the data, and then you will need to create a new div to hold that JSON. Okay, kind of look back at the first activity. Looks like it's kind of similar to that one. So you're going to get a movie first from the right before one attribute, $this attribute, get the movie name, create the URL, make the AJAX call. You're going to get a JSON back, and then dump that JSON into a div tag. So now it's a combination of the very first activity and the last activity that we just did. Okay. Again, please make sure to spend some time on this one. Make sure you understand what is being asked. Again, the best way is kind of follow up the code, what is going on, what are these events, and where is this function being called from. Let's see. Add movie, movies, view. This is my form. If you want to make it easy, remember the very first exercise we had a div tag. You can add a div tag in your HTML if that makes it a bit easier. Movies view. Okay. So now all you have to do is get this div tag and show your JSON within this div tag. Oops. Let's go down on this. So if I just do a simple console log here, I want to see which button is calling this method. Display movie info function called. Oops. Just to test this one out. So if I click this, okay. So all of these buttons are calling display movie info. So if I add a new button, that should also call this method. So all of these are button callers. So on click, you're going to make, every time I click this, you're going to get the movie name. Remember from the data attribute previous exercise, take that movie name, make an AJAX call, get the JSON back, and then just show it on the div over. Just dump it over here, okay? That's all. Remember the JSON stringify method. So it's a combination of the very first activity and the last activity. So actually the solutions already has that code from the previous ones. So let me put, I'm going to just put some comments if you guys are stuck somewhere. So the first thing is get the movie name using data attributes. Okay, that's the first thing. Once you have the movie name, create query URL with the movie name and API key. Okay, so you're going to create a query URL, and then you're going to make an AJAX call to get the JSON. Okay, once you have the JSON, convert the JSON to string using json.stringify method. Right, add the JSON string to movies dash view div. Movies dash view div. Okay, again, movies view div, I created a div in my HTML. In the starter template, it does not exist. I just made it for the ease of use, so you don't have to create a div in your jQuery. I just created over here. Similar to the first exercise, you just need to get that JSON, convert it using stringify, and then just show it over there. Okay, so these are the 5 steps that will complete this function. Andrew, you look confused. Did you get the first one? The first step. Did you get this one? Okay, so did you complete the previous exercise? Which one? Okay, so do you remember, if you go back to the previous one, what we did? How do we get the movie name? Yeah, so declare a variable first, right? Let movie name Okay, and then dollar this, what else? Dot attribute function. Okay, and what do I need to pass in here? Data dash name. Yep. Okay. Do you understand this, Andrew, or kind of confused about this? Okay. So do you remember the fridge activity or the crystal one? Remember we were using the data attribute over here. Where is this coming from? If you look at your HTML, if you open your, where's my movie there? This one, movies button. You see each one has a attribute called data name, and each one of them has the movie name. And where is this happening? If you scroll down in the code, in the render functions, in your for loop that we did in the previous activity, we are creating a button, right? Adding a class. This is your CSS class. This probably, okay. And this is where you're adding that attribute. Okay. So that's when your page renders. It has this attribute called data name and it has the movie. Where is this movie name coming from? Since we are looping from the array, each movie name is the element of this array and it gets added to the data name. Okay, so this is why each of these buttons have this data name attribute, right? When I click any button, I need to get that movie name. Basically, I'm trying to get that attribute that we created in the previous one, data name, because each one of these attributes has the movie name. Okay, now where is this method being called from? Display movie info. If you scroll down, it's on this click event. When you click it, any class, right, is going to call this function. So that's how when we come to this function, we are using this dot attribute and data name to get actually the movie name. So if I console log this over here, I should, any movie that I click should actually give me the correct name. So let's go back to our console. If I click this, it should give me the correct name, and that's where it is. This gives me the name, this gives me the name, this gives me the name. Okay, if I add a new movie, okay, and then if I click this, it should give me the correct name. That's what's going on over here. The first step was to get this movie name, and that's how we get the movie name. Okay. Basim, do you know the second step, the URL? What did you put in for the URL?
So, okay,
Create a variable.
yeah,
Okay. Let query name is equal to, and then you copied the URL from OMDB. Okay, let me go back and copy it from the previous activity. Oops. Something like this. Let me fix it. Yeah, that'll work. But I'm going to put it over here. The reason is I don't need this anywhere other than this function. So, I mean, it can be there, but I don't see a use. If I was using this anywhere else, then yes, I would put it globally on the top, but I don't see a use because it's going to be used in this function and that's it. So I'm gonna keep it over here. So OMDB, and then I need to put in my movie name. Okay. Um, let's go and change this to template literal. It's kind of, I don't know if you guys are still used to this thing or not, but I really like this string literal. It's just 1 line. I don't have to add these plus and all that stuff. Movie name. What did I miss? Is it ampersand? Ampersand. Okay. This is, and then my movie name can be replaced with that dollar expression, dollar parentheses curly braces. So basically my URL is going to become, so if you want to see what the exact URL is being generated, or if it is correct or not, I'm going to console log this and then see if it is the correct URL. So if I click matrix, and this is my movie name, so there's some issue over here. You see the space is being added over here. We'll see. We'll make a, I don't know if it'll make a request or not. I think you need to add a plus sign, but we'll see. Maybe OMDB is smart enough to kind of put a space over here. Let's take a look at it. Okay, but this is the URL that is coming. Okay. So, yes. Okay. So the dash matrix, and that works. Oh yeah. That will fix it. Yeah. I mean, over here also you can do a well, is there a replace function? Replace space with plus. Replace what is it? String JavaScript. Yeah, there's a replace method. We can use this. So replace spaces with plus sign. str dot replace this with this. So you can do dot replace. That looks ugly here. Let me do it here. So movie name is equal to movie name dot replace. If there's any space, replace it with a plus sign. So this will take care of that issue. So if you go back and look at our console, there's the plus sign. You see that, Raymond? So yeah, that's an easy one. Okay, so my query is done. Now going back, how do I make that Ajax call? Same thing, $.ajax. Let's see. So $.ajax, it's a function, and then .then. Okay, let's move it to different lines. It kind of looks nicer, formatted. My Ajax function takes an object, right? The first property is the URL, and I'm going to pass in my query URL. Oh, okay, I'll just keep it query name. No, I can't live with this. Okay, so pass in the query URL, and then the second was the HTTP method, which is going to be our get method. Okay, format it. Let's go back to our then function. Takes in two callback functions. So function, the first function is going to be success. The second is going to be error. Stub it out. Format it. Okay. The first will give some data back. Let's call it response. Again, you can call it anything you want. Response. And the second is going to give you an error. Let's complete the error one. That's easier. So error. Just log the error. Okay, and let's go ahead and log the response to see if this function, this Ajax call is actually working. So if I click, it should give me some JSON back. Okay, and there it is, matrix, notebook. I'm getting some JSON back for all of them. Okay, the last was to convert it into a string and then add it to our movies view. Let's do that really quickly. So dollar ID movies view dot text. Okay, and add the response, but this time using the JSON.stringify. That looks nicer. JSON.stringify, and then pass in this response. Okay. Let's test this out. I don't need the console. It should show up here. So if I do this, this shows up. If I do this, kind of replaces this whole thing. Okay. And then this happens. So if I add a new movie and then I click this, it should bring me the correct information. Okay, so we converted, we did these two things inside over here. So we converted it to a string so that it doesn't show object, and then showed it on the movies view. And this div I added manually, I kind of hard coded on the top over here. Otherwise, you can actually create it in jQuery and then add it to it. But this was kind of simplified version. Okay. Questions? Getting used to it or not? Still confused? I feel like you guys are not getting it for some reason. I don't know. Is it true or not? What is the rest, the whole, even Thursday is all exercise and all of them are Ajax calls. It's the same syntax that I'm repeating, and that's why I like talk out when I'm typing also, so that you guys get it. But tell me, what are you not getting it, so that I can repeat that, because I'm just coding over here and kind of get the feeling that people are not understanding this. Somebody please say something. Yes. Thank you, John, first of all. Yes, go ahead.
When I looked online, I see a different
Okay.
syntax where they're putting the success in
Right.
the object
What?
Ajax.
Okay. So remember on my Slack what I said, that pick one syntax and just stick to it, right? And this is a better one. This is why I'm sticking to it. Okay. So next your answer. So you're saying success. Where do you see success?
They put it as just another item in the object, Ajax call.
In the Ajax call, yes. Okay. Again, there are jQuery gives few different options. How would you make that Ajax call? Okay. So the thing is, the one that makes more sense to you, pick one and then do it. Okay. I can explain that syntax also, but since we are sticking to this one, just stick to this one. It's the same thing. Okay. The success one that you are saying is, instead of using these two callback functions, they have created something in behind which you can do something like this. Okay, still a callback function, but instead of this, they're kind of using this syntax. That's what it is. But again, for this case, I would say pick one that more makes sense to you.
What I'm saying is that under method, they'll have success, colon, and then a function. It's a p-value pair.
So where do you? How do I type this in?
So after the get.
After the get over here. Okay.
You put another line, you put success, colon, and then a
Function name. Let's call it callback success. Okay. I will explain this, but if you're sticking to this method, stick to this. So what's happening is, it's the same thing as over here, right? So if we remove this property, what am I saying over here? I'm saying make an Ajax call. Okay. If it is successful, call this function. Oops. Success callback. Okay. And if there is any error, then go ahead and call this function. Error callback. Okay. And then remember, I said there are different syntaxes. You will find different. Okay. Pick one and then stick to it. The one that John is mentioning is you don't need to do this. The other way is you can, instead, in your jQuery allows that also, you can create another property. I think it's success, and the second one, John, is error. Is it error or failure? Error, I think. Okay. This is the same thing. Instead, you are saying is, if this Ajax call is successful, call a function over here. If this is failed, then call this function. I'm doing the same thing over here. It's the same thing. There's no difference. The only thing is the syntax. If you think this is easy to understand, then stick to it. But write all of your activity in this syntax. Don't kind of keep switching because it's going to get confusing. Right? I picked this syntax because we'll see some other activities later on. They kind of use this syntax, so I'm kind of more used to it. So that's why I picked this one, and I stick to this one. Okay, but I have more experience, so this syntax, I understand what's going on, but I don't want to confuse you guys. That's why I'm not switching around the syntax. But if you think this is better, if you feel like, then do every exercise with this. I don't mind at all. Pick a one that makes more sense or more sense to you. But do you understand what's going on? They're just saying that if it is successful, then call this function, and this function you have to define it, or you can create an anonymous function that's I'm doing like at the bottom, and then you're going to do response here, okay, and then you're going to do the whole jQuery over here, okay. The only thing I don't like about this is this is one big object. It's going to become like huge, and this would be the case where I wouldn't be able to use anonymous function, so I'll have to create the function separately, just so that my whole jQuery doesn't come over here. It kind of doesn't become big. That's the only drawback that I see. So that's why I don't kind of use this one. And again, I'm more kind of used to this one. That's why. But it's the same thing. Okay? Pick one syntax and just solve every exercise with this. Okay. This was, again, it's a good question, but it's still, what other questions are? This is not exactly, I mean, it seems like John kind of understands this concept. He was just looking into a different method to do it. Any other questions? Because I don't know, I get a feeling you guys are not getting it for some reason. Am I right or not? You're right? Okay, so what is the, tell me something. Give me what is the issue so that I can address. Because again, guys, if you don't understand this is actually real world programming. This is what people are doing. This is how you get the data. This is actually your project. Everything is based off this. If you don't know how to make an Ajax call, I don't know how you're going to do your project. So what is the confusing part? Is it the callback function or the concept Ajax? What is it? Somebody please. Basim, you told me you were saying. Oh, Sarah. Okay. Good.
I feel like I understand how to do it, but is it best to have the the separated variables? Like you have to do it. Like the URL, how to create it, so that you can plug in different users. Obviously, do that particular one.
Yes. Yeah.
Or you could just write it in Ajax.
You can totally write it over here. Doesn't. It's fine. I mean, this will.
Just put that same
Yeah. Put this here. This will also work. It doesn't matter. It just looks cleaner and nicer to me. That's why I have it. Because now if I want to change something, or if I have multiple Ajax calls, I just have to change the main URL over here and I'm good. If I'm copying, pasting everything over here, if I have 10 Ajax calls, then I have to go everywhere, paste it, change it. So let's suppose OMDB kind of goes down, or they change the name to ODB, right? Then I have to go to all 10 calls and change the name. In this case, I just have to change it over here, and my URL is good for every other Ajax call. That's the only reason. Basim, you were going to say.
Yeah, under method, you have a
Success.
success and you say you have a successful callback.
Okay.
If that's the case and you're writing a call under that same
Mm-hmm.
portion of that Ajax function, you need the then.
No, you don't need the then. Yeah. You don't need the then if you're writing it over there. You guys are liking that method? Is that what it is? Oh, really? Oh. What is it?
Realize it too.
Yeah, yeah. The only drawback I see is then your whole jQuery code is going in that big in this object. But I mean, again, as I said, if that makes more sense, it's fine. Whatever is easier for you guys to understand. What else? Well, like, so right now I'm putting this in this div. So you're saying create a new one? Right. Something like this. Okay. So this is what this is doing. So let me go back here. So right now, if I click this, nothing happens, right? So what I want to do is I want to get this div, this JSON, and then just dump it out in a div which exists over here, line number 33. Okay, and the ID for that div is movies view. Let's go back here. So what do I have to do? I have to first get that ID. Oops. Movies view. Okay, so this gives me that div, and then I use a text method. Okay, and then I put in my response, which is the JSON coming back from here. Of course, I spelled it wrong. Okay, now that's it. So let's see what happens. When I click this, it gives me this object, right? So remember the hint was JSON.stringify. So this is a method that takes in this JSON object and converts it into a string, a human readable string, so that we can actually read what is going on. Okay. Now, how do you do that? Let's suppose create a variable JSON string. Okay. JSON dot stringify. This is a method from JavaScript. Okay. And then in this method, you pass in the JSON that is coming back from your AJAX call, which is response. Okay. Now this string, if you replace it over here, this time it's going to change this and show you a better string. So this method JSON.stringify takes in the JSON object that comes in from your AJAX request, converts it into a human readable string, put it into a new variable, and then if you send this to your jQuery text method, it's going to show up much better than object. That's what this method does. Response.json. Oh yeah. You can do it all in one. You can do it over here. Yes. Basically, you can just copy this whole thing and put it over here. That will also do. I was just making sure that you guys see what that response is coming, so you can do. Is that what you did?
Yeah, so I actually, I did create the variables, but I have response dot based on that string
Yeah, because there's no method. I mean, this is the syntax is not correct. JSON.stringify. This is what you did. Yeah, this is the incorrect syntax. That's why it doesn't work. So the correct syntax is JSON.stringify, and then you pass in the response in it. So this is a function that is part of JavaScript library. Okay. Well, I mean, this variable, I want to pass it to the text function over here. Either you can do it this way, or because this is returning a string. So either you can put it in a variable and then put it here. This is the same as doing directly over here. It doesn't matter. It's the same thing. This is a shortcut for this thing. So that's why I create a variable. If this is easier to see, then that's how you are doing it. You're assigning it to a variable and then reusing that in your text. Okay? What else? Still feel like people are confused. What?
How do you feel about the data name? You understand the setting the attribute, the data name, and then retrieving it.
Is that the confusing part, or is this? Are you guys good with the Ajax part? The data attribute part, this one? This one? All right, so remember we have some data attributes in HTML, right? This is part of new HTML syntax. You can assign some values to your data attributes. Again, this is similar to the fridge example, the crystal one, the homework crystal that you guys did. Were you guys not using the data attribute? So that's the same thing over here. What we are doing is we are assigning these data attributes to our buttons over here so that it kind of shows up like this. Where's my buttons? This thing. Okay. And how are you creating this data attribute? When you create your button. And what is the method that you are creating your button in? It is called render buttons. Okay. So you loop through the movies array. Each movie is going to become a button. Okay. So you create a button, you add a CSS class, and then you add this attribute data name and then assign the movie name to it. And that's why this shows up like this. Okay. And the reason is because we are going to retrieve the movie name at some other point. And what is that point? That point is in your Ajax call over here. Okay. If you don't do that, you won't be able to retrieve the movie name using this syntax. Okay. You wouldn't actually be able to retrieve the name anyway. So this is how you do it. Same with the crystal game, we had the numbers behind the data name. We were retrieving the numbers. We are using the same syntax over here. So this time, our data attribute just contains a movie name instead of a number or anything else. Okay, and then we use that movie name, build our URL, and then make an Ajax call, get the response, show the response, parse it, or in the next exercise, we'll come and complete the whole UI, but this is the part where you are getting the data back from your OMDB API. It has to be data dash and then anything. Yes. How did you complete the exercise if you didn't use the data? You can use value. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you can use the val attribute then. Yeah. Or if you're using data, then the syntax says data dash and then anything you want, but it has to be data dash. Okay, you can use what Sarah is saying. I'm sure maybe most of you guys saw that. The val attribute, she's using the val attribute. Kind of similar thing. Okay, so let's. Oh. Okay, which. Prevents what? Event.prevent default. What is, anybody has an idea? What event.prevent default is doing? Goose, you have an idea? No. So remember from our HTML, this is kind of going back 3 weeks. So our HTML form, if you have a form, and let's go back to our HTML, this form attribute, if you are using the form and you use the input, it comes by default, it comes with that submit button, this thing. Okay. and then if you hit the submit button, what happens? This is a form. It's going to, by default, it does is it takes the data and submits it automatically. Okay, it doesn't let you do anything. It will, if you remove this over here, right, it's going to go ahead and take control and do the submission on its own. What is it doing? You need to pass in few more stuff, but right now it's usually it's you have a API call over here. So the form button by default, what it will do is it will take the data and try to send it to some server. By default, that's what it does. Now we are missing some parameters. If you look at W3 schools, you will see something like, is it called post? I can't remember the source something. Let's see, form W3 schools. Yeah, this thing. So, I mean, we haven't seen this yet, but if you go back and see that it has an action, since we don't have that action. So basically by default, forms are built like this, that if you have a button in the form tag, you see this whole thing is inside the form tag. If you have a button, when you click it, it's going to automatically go and try to call this API. Okay, that's what the form by default does. But we don't have any API over here. We are not using that functionality. To prevent that, we need to do event.prevent default so that form does not go and try to do something like this. That's the reason we have event.prevent default. Okay, again, why? Because form from HTML already has built-in functionality to take your data and submit it and basically send it back to some API. Right now we are not using that functionality, which comes in this form over here if you see the example. So we don't want that to happen. Why? Because we have control, we are doing something, we know what to do with it, right? If you don't have this, none of this code actually gets executed, right? So to make sure to prevent that button to do something, go ahead and try to do something, we are saying go ahead and don't do anything, we will take care of that submission. That's what this is for. Okay, give it a try, take it out and see, create a simple button and don't add this and see what happens. Okay, basically you won't have any control over this, anything that you are putting in the code, and it's just going to do its own thing. Again, why? Because that's how the form tag is. Okay, and if you see this example, they are passing some thing. This is basically, you can think of this as an API, right? Well, right now we don't have this, that's why you're not using this functionality. Basically what it does is it will take all the information that you entered and it's going to call this action page.php, whatever that page is.
From the front end, it's basically just going to clear your text box and you're not going to.
Yeah. So that's why to prevent that action, we are using event.prevent default. Okay. All right, let's do the last one. Basically, you are creating the final thing that I showed you. It should show up the movies post. Now you have all the JSON data coming through. What you need to do is you need to get those images and posters and kind of show up on your page. These are the 4 things you need to extract from that JSON: movie poster, rating, release date, and plot. Okay, so let's look at the easier one. Okay, so if you scroll down, let's see. So the Ajax call is already being done, like the code is already there, right? But this code is not completed. Okay, so in response, you're going to get that JSON information. Now console log this and kind of parse it through, and then put those into all the divs over here. Okay, so response will have all the big JSON. From that response, we are extracting the rating data, rating, release here, poster, plot, and all of those, and then basically kind of putting that into a nice div that shows up. So let's go ahead and run this code. Okay. Let me go ahead and console log this part so that, because the code for Ajax is already there. If you do a response and then click, ooh, response. Okay. So you see the data is already there. It comes through. You don't have to write the Ajax call. It's already there. Okay. Now in this response, you have all the data. You're going to parse it and extract the information out. For example, retrieve the rating data. Let's see. Could be this, or looks like is it an array? I think it's this thing, the rated. So that's what they're asking. So how would I parse if I want to get the R rated? It's going to be the object response dot rated, right? So that's how you extract this information out and then show it into different divs so that they kind of show up over here. As you click, this should fill up with that movie poster. Again, the Ajax is already done. You're already getting the response. You have to parse this response and kind of show it in different divs. So you can just create either divs or Ps, just show those four things and it should show up over there. Let's see, what divs do we have? Buttons view will have all the buttons. Forum, we have a movies view. So our buttons are being created with this class. So all of this is already done from the previous exercise. This is the only part that needs to be completed. So you're getting the response, create a main div and add like p tags to it. So let me do the first one. Let's see. Like creates a div to hold the movie. Oops. So let movie div is equal to dollar and then create a new div. I can add a class to it, right? Just create a movie div and then you can add p tags, append to this tag. So retrieve the rating data. Let's call it let this is rated. What was it? Response dot rated. Let's make sure. response.rating. Okay, so this will give you the rating, and then create maybe like a p tag and add this rating to this div tag. Similarly, release here. This is one part. Retrieves the release here, creates an element, and then do this. Then we do the same thing for the plot. Post the entire movie, and then you're going to add that to this div.
It's in the right, that's the T or whatever it is. Right. So they must have something else. Mm-hmm. Pick one. So
So the second line creates an element to have the rating displayed. You can create a div or a p tag. Let's say p rated. If I want to create a p tag, same syntax. Okay, and then in the text I want to display the rating. So I can say rating is my variable rated. Okay, so I just created a p tag and assigned the text that I captured from the previous line. And how do you display this? You need to append this newly created tag to your movie div here. So movie div dot append p rated. Okay, so you retrieve the data first, create a new tag. I'm using p tag. You can use anything, h1 or whatever you guys want. Okay, assign that data to it, whatever I captured, and then append this newly created element to your movie div that you created on line number 55. Right, so it's going to keep adding all this stuff. So same thing with the year. Capture the year, create a p tag or a h1 or any other tag you want, append it to this. Okay, then you move on to the plot, do the same thing. Then you do the same thing with the image tag. Okay. Oh, it doesn't show up. So if in my console I can see my data is coming back. Okay, but it's not showing up on the screen, at least my rating. Everything else, I mean, I haven't coded it, but my rating doesn't show up. So I created a new div tag. Okay, created a new p tag and attached it to this div tag. Okay, what am I missing that's it's not showing up here? Right, I am not appending it to the main HTML tag over here. That's why it doesn't show up. So once you are done with this, the last part is to append this to the main movie tag that is on the top. Okay, that will be your dollar. Oops. And your main movie tag is movies dash view. Okay, and then append the movie div to it. Okay, let's try now. There's the rating. There's a rating for this. There's a rating for this. So you see, it's appending, but it's going down. Remember the solution that I showed you, it was going above. So when I click this one, this is fine. When I click this, it adds it to the next line. I want this to be added on top of this. Basically, I want to see my latest click on the top. Raymond, do you know how do I fix this? Instead of adding at the bottom, I need this to be on the top. Prepend. Thank you. I haven't lost much hope now. Thank you guys. All right, prepend fixes that. So shows up here. The new one shows up on the top. Then this. Then this. Yeah. Add a new one. Shows up here, and then it shows up on the top. So that's the extra click that I did. Okay. Same thing with the next one. What's the? Does anybody know what's the property for year? I don't want to look at my console again. Response dot what? Dot what? Release? Release. That's it? Okay. And then same thing, I'm going to create a p tag for this one as well. P release, let's call it release is equal to dollar create a new p tag, okay, dot text. This time I am putting in year, so let's say release year is this is year. Okay. Last thing is to append this to the movie div dot append p release. Oops. Okay. Since I'm already appending at the bottom, there shouldn't be any more code change. So let's see if this shows up. Okay. Ooh, undefined. Come on, Eric. What is it? Dot uppercase. Oh, there it is. Eric, did you follow? It was actually dot year. Oh, let's check that out. So which one are you looking at? Released? Okay. Yeah, so it's D. I was missing the D. Yeah. So yeah, it gives you the exact. Yeah, I put in release. So this is the correct one. So let's check that out. And there's the release here. Okay, so both are fine. Either take the year, release, doesn't matter. The more important is shows up over here. Change what? What is it? Oh, all right. There you go. Guess shouldn't be even saying this. At least I got to this part. Oh, prepend item. So again, I'm prepending it to the big div, which is here. Oops, where is it? This one. So this is the one that I'm creating locally, and then all of these p tags are attached to this. So if you look at our HTML, so this is my big div. Okay, within that I created these small divs over here. So each one is being attached to this. And then eventually I prepend because I want to show the latest one. The one that I clicked basically on the top. Okay? Please go back and redo these activities before the next class. Again, you see I use the exact same functions from Saturday or even on Thursday. You're still kind of doing the same thing, right? Different project. We're going to look at New York Times API. Please make sure to sign up, come up with your API keys. And there are a couple of different APIs. I'll post if you guys want to do it. Now, the last one, I just want to say that there's a challenge activity called bands something. Where is it? Bands in Town app. Okay. Again, once you are done with the activities, take a look at this one. I think if you ask for the API, they have kind of restricted because I think our students are making so many requests. So it might take few days to get it. I don't know. But if you're working on it, you can send me a DM on Slack and I can give you my API key. Right, this will tell me who has done it or who has not. That's why I'm not posting publicly. Okay, So if you get to this point and your API key is not ready, you can ask me and I will give it to you. But at some point, please don't keep using my API key. Okay, it's going to get banned or something. All right, I'll see you guys on Thursday.